Top 8 Home Health Devices for Seniors. Live strong and safe at home. Hello old friends, it's me again. Have you ever woken up in the morning and sat on the edge of your bed for a long time, not wanting to get up? Not because you're too tired, but because you feel your body changing every day, as if you're in a completely new rhythm of life. I remember the time when I used to walk around my neighborhood in Atlanta every morning, stop by a familiar coffee shop, say hello to a few old friends, then go home to take care of the plants and clean the house. But recently, just bending down to tie your shoes requires you to hold onto the edge of a chair and take a deep breath to do it. Your body is no longer as agile as it used to be, which is something that all of us will have to face at some point, especially after the age of 60. But I don't think we should let our bodies weaken. On the contrary, now is the time when we need to pay more attention to it, take better care of it, and in fact, if we know how, we can still live healthy without having to go far, just stay at home. We often think that healthcare is the job of doctors, hospitals, medicines, and machines. But in fact, healthcare starts with small things every day, from our own hands. I talked to a few friends of the same age. Some of them are still very active, playing golf every week, cooking regularly, doing yoga every morning. But there are also people who just hang around the house, lying down when their backs are sore, sitting when their legs are sore, not daring to go anywhere for fear of falling. What makes the difference is not just health, but how they proactively protect their health. And the interesting thing is, there are some tools, very simple, but they can help us take care of ourselves proactively, conveniently, and much more safely right at home. Just imagine, if there were a few assistive devices in your home, you wouldn't have to fumble around too much when you need to stand up, wouldn't have to hold back when you need to go to the bathroom for fear of falling in the shower, wouldn't have to wait for your children to come to measure your blood pressure. Each thing is small, but when combined, they help you become more confident, more proactive, and most importantly, live independently longer while still being safe. And that's also the reason why I want to sit down with everyone today, talk a little about seemingly small items, but can make a huge change in our daily lives. To start, I want to tell everyone a little story that happened to me about a year ago. That day, I was mopping the floor. Yes, I still mop the floor myself if I haven't been forbidden to. When I suddenly felt a little dizzy. If I bent down and stood up, my head would spin around like I was on a roller coaster. But I didn't pay much attention, thinking it was probably because I was hungry. A moment later, I accidentally tripped over a small rug in the living room and almost fell down. I panicked, went to get my blood pressure monitor, the old one I used when I was working, and found that my blood pressure was dropping. After that incident, I switched to a new type of machine, one with a large screen, automatic inflation, easy to read numbers, and especially easy to use alone. No need for anyone's help. It was the first thing that I think anyone at this age should have in the house, an automatic, easy to use, and reliable electronic blood pressure monitor. I know many people think that going to the doctor every few months is enough. But in fact, blood pressure is something that changes hourly, daily. Some people have normal blood pressure in the morning, but it increases in the afternoon, or vice versa. If you don't monitor it regularly, how will you know? Especially for those with a history of high blood pressure, heart disease, or diabetes, monitoring at home will help you detect early signs of abnormalities so that you can make timely adjustments, or at least not be surprised in emergency situations. A study by the American Heart Association shows that if older people monitor their blood pressure at home at least 3 times a week, they will reduce the risk of hospitalization due to stroke or stroke by nearly 40%. That number is enough to make us think seriously about equipping ourselves with this small but extremely necessary machine. I tell that story to show that we should not wait until there is a problem to worry. Instead, we must know how to check ourselves in advance, monitor in advance, and understand our condition to be proactive. And once we have a blood pressure monitor, measuring it must become a habit. For example, I measure it in the morning after waking up, when my body has not been affected by coffee or eating or drinking anything. After measuring, write it down. No need to be fancy, a small notebook or note on your phone is enough. After a few weeks, you will clearly see the trend of increase and decrease. And then you can adjust your diet and exercise accordingly. It's that simple. After the blood pressure monitor, there is another item that I think many people have thought of, especially those who often have back pain or knee pain: an automatic lift chair. I know it sounds a bit luxurious, but in fact, many types are now very affordable, suitable for the elderly. The advantage of this chair is that it helps me stand up or sit down much more gently. Especially when my knees hurt, my back is stiff, or even after eating a full meal and I want to stand up to wash the dishes, the chair supports a certain amount of lifting to help me not have to stretch, reducing pressure on my knees and spine. There are days when I am tired, I just need to sit in that chair, press the button for it to help me stand up, and I feel like someone is helping me gently and discreetly. A friend of mine in San Diego, who had knee replacement surgery last year, bought this chair right away when she got home. She said that since she got it, she no longer needs anyone to help her stand up from the sofa. Being able to do it yourself, and the feeling of being able to do it yourself, is what keeps your spirit comfortable. And you know, it is the feeling of being in control of small things, like standing up without needing anyone else, that makes a big difference in your spirit. You feel that you are still healthy, still able to do it, still independent. And that nourishes both your body and your soul. When you get used to monitoring your blood pressure and have a chair that supports lifting and lowering, your daily activities become much easier. But there is still one more thing, which seems small but has a big impact on safety, that is in the bathroom. Specifically, the times when you have to hold onto the sink or the wall while taking a shower for fear of slipping. We all know that the bathroom is the easiest place to fall, especially early in the morning or at night when going to the toilet. And one of the simplest ways to prevent that is to install a few sturdy grab bars in the bathroom and near the toilet. I have a cousin who lives in Minneapolis and works in physical therapy. She said that many elderly people come to rehabilitation not because of serious illness, but because they slipped in the shower. Falling just once can break a hip, affecting their ability to walk for a long time. But if there was a fixed handrail near the place they often stand, that accident might not happen. I think that installing handrails is not only for safety, but also a way for us to continue living independently without fear. We don't have to wait for our children to come and take us to the bathroom. We can still walk, wash our faces, and bathe ourselves. We just need a little support in the right places. I understand that some people will think these things are a bother or not necessary yet. But in fact, when we proactively prepare in advance, we will never have to live in worry. I believe that everyone wants to live in their own home, moving comfortably in each familiar room. So why not make it safer and easier? And here are 3 things that I think we should all consider: a good blood pressure monitor, a lift chair, and some grab bars in the bathroom. Each has its own role, but together they help us live more proactively, more comfortably, and most importantly, more freely. And at this age, nothing is more precious than the freedom of our own home. Since I started paying attention to these little things in my home, life has naturally become much more enjoyable. I no longer feel afraid every time I have to stand up from a chair, no longer feel anxious when going to the bathroom. And strangely, when my body is not tense because of the fear of falling or because of back pain every time I sit down, my spirit is also lighter. Many people think that when they are old, all they need is quiet and rest. But I believe that, at any age, the body needs to be active, just exercise properly and safely. And to do that at home, there is one more thing that I find worth investing in: a smart walking stick or a 4-legged anti-slip cane. When I say smart here, I don't mean embedded chips or any fancy technology, but rather its design is smart. That means the cane is not just a walking stick, but it is solidly made, has a good grip, can stand on its own without falling over, and has a soft, anti-slip handle that won't hurt your palm when you hold it for a long time. Some models now even have a built-in flashlight or a small alarm for when you go out at night or when you are home alone and need to attract attention. Once, I visited my neighbor in Louisville, an old lady who is over 80 years old but still walks comfortably in the garden thanks to a sturdy 4-legged cane. She said that since she got this cane, she no longer feels afraid when going out into the garden. Whether walking on wet ground after rain or slippery tile floors, the cane helps her to be more stable. What I saw most clearly was, she walks confidently. And that confidence, at this age, is more precious than gold. Because once we lose the confidence to stand up and walk, that is when we begin to depend. Actually, a cane is not a sign of weakness as many people think. It is a tool of initiative. I always think that a person who knows what they need and dares to use it to help themselves live better is many times stronger than a person who keeps pretending that they don't need anyone's help. And the cane, seemingly small, is a symbol of strength, of someone who does not wait for help but chooses to help himself. There is an uncle I know in Charlotte, a retired music teacher, who once said, "I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I use a cane so I can visit my wife in the hospital every day, without having to worry about tripping on the way." And I believe that is the best reason to choose a good cane, to continue living your life the way you want, with stability. When it comes to exercise, I also want to mention a very simple but little-known tool, a non-slip exercise mat. It may sound like it is only for young people to practice yoga, but in fact, a good mat is the starting point for any gentle exercise at home, from stretching the back, rotating the shoulder joints, to practicing deep breathing. Many people skip exercise because they think they can't go to the gym, don't have a trainer, or feel like they're not as agile as before. But in fact, just 10 to 15 minutes of light exercise on a soft mat every day can make a difference in their body. I have a habit of spreading out the mat in the living room every morning after measuring my blood pressure, opening the windows for ventilation, and then doing some stretching exercises that my doctor instructed me to do. Some days I turn on the radio to play light jazz, and some days I just listen to the birds outside. Although it's not a hard exercise, it's regular. And importantly, I do it without anyone having to remind me. The feeling of doing light exercise every day not only helps my muscles not to atrophy, but also lifts my spirits. A study by the University of California shows that older adults who maintain light exercise every day, even if it's just 10 minutes of stretching or walking indoors, will significantly improve joint flexibility, reduce the risk of falling, and increase independence. But to exercise, you need a safe, non-slip place. A good mat will help you stand and sit firmly, without worrying about slipping when stretching your legs or pushing yourself up with your hands. I remember once visiting my aunt in Florida. She smiled and said, "This mat is my exercise partner every morning. I don't need anyone else, as long as I have a flat surface and the will." It sounds simple but makes sense. Because clearly, I can't wait for someone else to help me exercise. My body, my health, my spirit, all must be taken care of by myself. From the cane to the exercise mat, we are talking about proactively keeping my body flexible. But besides exercise, there is another very important thing: regular monitoring of health indicators. In addition to blood pressure, there is another indicator that deserves attention: blood sugar. Especially for those who have a history of diabetes or are at the pre-diabetes level. And this is when another compact device needs to be present in the house: a personal blood sugar meter. Many people will think that blood sugar meters are for doctors. But in fact, when we can check blood sugar at home, we understand our body much better. For example, after eating a dinner with a lot of white rice and sweet fruit, how will the blood sugar be? Or after a night of little sleep, is the blood sugar level higher than normal? If we don't check those things, we can only guess. But when we have a meter, we know clearly, and from there adjust our eating and living habits more reasonably. I used to think that measuring blood sugar would be difficult, afraid of having to prick blood, afraid of pain. But in fact, today's machines are designed to be very user-friendly. The needle is extremely small, only one drop is needed, and the result is available in less than a second. A friend of mine in Austin, 72 years old, has had type 2 diabetes for more than 10 years. He said that by measuring his blood sugar every morning and recording the index regularly, he knows what he eats every day that causes his blood sugar to increase, and from there he gradually cuts down on bad starches and switches to eating more vegetables and fish. He doesn't need anyone to force him, but he observes and adjusts himself. And you know what's interesting? People who proactively monitor their health like this tend to live more positively. Because when you know where you are, you no longer feel vague, no longer passive. You don't have to wait until you have symptoms to go to the doctor. Instead, you understand your body every day, and that's the best way to prevent disease. There's another aspect that I think is worth sharing, that is the feeling of peace when you can take care of your own health without having to bother your children too much. I once heard a friend confide, "I don't want to be a burden to my children. I just want to pass each day proactively and know what I'm doing for myself." And I think that feeling is not selfish, but love in the most mature way. We have gone through seemingly small things together: a sturdy cane, a soft mat, an accurate blood glucose meter. But in each of those small things is a way of life, living confidently, living with knowledge, living proactively. No need to be noisy, no need to shout, just knowing what you are doing to protect your health, and that is enough. So every day, I take my time to take care of myself in my own way. Every morning I wake up, measure my blood pressure, measure my blood sugar, then spread out the mat, and do some light warm-ups. In less than half an hour, my whole body is alert, my mind is clear. The atmosphere in the house also seems to be completely different. Warmer, lighter, and most importantly, there is no longer a feeling of dependence. Maybe because I am truly living proactively. But no matter how healthy I am, there are times when I feel unwell. One night I woke up in the middle of the night. My heart was beating faster than usual, my chest was a bit tight, and I had to sit up for a while to feel better. That's why I decided to invest in another item, something I initially thought only hospitals needed: a blood oxygen level monitor, also known as a SpO2 meter. Sounds strange, right? But the older we get, the more likely we are to have low blood oxygen levels without even knowing it. Especially those with underlying conditions such as chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, cardiovascular disease, or who have had COVID-19. Just one night of sleeping in the wrong position or a prolonged cough can cause oxygen levels to drop significantly. The most dangerous thing is, you don't see the signs until your body is rapidly declining. So having a small device, clipped to your fingertip, and knowing your oxygen level in a few seconds, is probably one of the simplest things everyone should do for themselves every week. A friend of mine in San Diego used to have mild hypoxia at night without even knowing it. It was only when he used the SpO2 meter the next morning and saw that the index was below 93% that he went to the doctor and discovered the lung problem. The doctor said that if he had been a little slower, it could have led to dangerous complications. But thanks to that small machine, he discovered it in time. Now, he said, this machine is right at the head of the bed. Every morning I clip it on my hand before getting out of bed, like brushing my teeth. No need to be fussy. Just a few dozen seconds a day, you can feel much more secure about your health. Indexes such as blood pressure, blood sugar, oxygen concentration, although they are numbers, they say a lot about our body. The main thing is whether we dare to listen to them or not. I know, sometimes there are people who are shy, will say, "I'm not used to using those machines, it's too complicated." But if we have lived more than 60 years of life, experienced many changes, learned to adapt to many changes of the times, then there is no reason not to get used to a few small machines, right? Especially when those machines are not to make things difficult for us, but to help us live more safely and proactively. They are not strange technologies, but silent companions, helping us see more clearly the signals that the body is trying to tell us. In fact, living healthy does not mean not being sick. It is knowing where you are, knowing what you need, and doing things that are suitable for your abilities. I once met an old lady in Phoenix. She said something that I will always remember: "I am not afraid of illness, I am only afraid of not understanding my illness." And I believe that understanding starts from small things, from a blood glucose meter, from a mat, from a cane, from knowing what your blood pressure is today. But perhaps, besides the tools that help measure, support walking or exercising, there is one more thing that I want to share. It does not emit numbers, does not have a screen, does not run on batteries. But it is the thing that makes me feel most secure every time something happens. That is the personal emergency alarm button. A small device, worn around the neck or mounted on the wall. Just press it to immediately send a signal to relatives or call emergency support services. Not to live in fear, but to live in peace. Especially when we are alone. I always remember an incident that happened to Uncle Henry, an old friend in Seattle. One time he slipped in the bathroom, could not get up, and the phone was in the living room. Luckily, he had an alarm button around his neck. Just press it. A few minutes later, relatives arrived in time. When I asked, "Do you think you need it because you're old?" he just smiled. "No, I don't wear it because I'm weak. I wear it because I value my time. I don't want to lie there in pain for hours just because I don't have a simple way to let others know I need help." Hearing that, I really understood. We don't choose when an accident happens, but we can choose how to prepare for it. A small panic button is a safety net. It allows me, and perhaps many people like me, to continue living independently and confidently in our own homes. To some people, the 8 tools I just mentioned, from blood pressure monitors, walking sticks, exercise mats, blood glucose meters, to panic buttons, are just things. But to me, each of them is a symbol of care. It is not only the care that our children and grandchildren show us when they give us gifts or help us buy, but also our own care for ourselves. We have come a long way in life. We have taken care of our families, overcome difficult times, and raised our children to be good people. Now it is time for us to take care of ourselves, not out of selfishness, but to continue to accompany our children and grandchildren firmly, healthily, and confidently. Living happily and healthily is not something far away. It starts with very small choices in the present. It is when we choose to step on the mat and do some light exercise every morning. It is when we measure our blood sugar and know what we should eat today. It is when we grab a walking stick and step out into the garden without hesitation. It is when we wear a small button and know that we are connected to our loved ones, even when we are alone. If you are watching this video and thinking, "I have never used those tools before," I want to say, it is never too late to start. We have the right to live a safe, independent, and meaningful life, right in our own homes. And that starts with taking care of ourselves every day. I hope that today's sharing will help you feel inspired, or at least make you wonder, what more can I do to live a healthier, more proactive life? If you have other tools that you use and find useful, please share them with me and everyone in the comments. We can all learn from each other, because health is a journey that no one should take alone. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button to let me know that you sympathize. And if you want to continue to receive warm and practical sharing like this, please subscribe to the channel so we can accompany each other for a long time. I really appreciate your presence here and hope we will see each other in many more videos. Wishing you a happy, healthy life and a life of resilience, no matter what age you are. Because age is just a number, and being proactive is what determines how we live each day. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and see you in the next videos.